Right? It goes, وَإِثْمُهُمَا أَكْبَرُ مِن نَفْعِهِمَا. But their sin is greater than their benefit. Right? Now, this is not the whole ayah, but this is the part that we're pulling out because that's what we concentrate on in intoxicants, right? So, when we think about their sin, what does it do? It doesn't give us full control of our mind. That's what the intoxicants does. It takes away from that. We're not able to think as clearly as we can. And you'll see in the next couple of slides why that gives so much trouble, right? Then it has 200 plus. Right? So 200 plus means that intoxicants are connected to at least 200 different diseases, from depression to suicide, right? Heart attack, you name it, going across. 200 plus diseases are connected to people taking some sort of intoxicant, whether it's alcohol, whether it's something else, whether it's thinners, whether it's gas, whether it's whatever, right? Whether it's nail polish, right? And most of all, the biggest issue, right, and the biggest sin is that it affects the religion. And that sin is even bigger than everything else. So when we look at what is the positives, the benefit, right? That benefit of getting profit and making money, there's a dunya thing, right? But when you look at what the bigger picture is here and how it affects your mind and your religion and of course so many diseases and stuff, then, you know, so what did Umar say? Umar said, after Allah told him this, you know, right? Send this message. Umar said, can you make it clearer to me? Because maybe he was speaking on behalf of other Sahabas and things said, they still weren't clear exactly what's the ruling on alcohol. Now, what we're trying to show you is Tadaruj, right? That the gradual movement of how Allah applied this law to us, right? So let's go on and see a little bit about this here, right? So we were in stage 1 just now, right? We're already 23 years and we now started the first sort of information about Khamr and what the issues were. And then let's go on and see what happens in the next part. After he asked the question now, so Allah now had to reply and deal with that, right? So we go to that second stage now. But while that was happening, right, there was a little Sahaba who was misbehaving, let me use that word, at the same time. And this was one of the incidents that was happening, right? What was happening there is that the Sahaba had drank alcohol to such a point that he was a little high. And when he was finished, right, he came and make wuzu and thing and come and led the salah. Now look at what the ruling was at that point. The ruling was just saying that, listen, there's benefit in alcohol, but there's much greater sin, right? So it didn't say what the ruling is that we have now. So he came and read the salah, and what he recited was, of course, Surah Al-Kafirun. So how we go with Kafirun? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun. Say, O you who disbelieve. Right? So Allah here is speaking about the disbelievers, and that's what he's reciting. And remember, this is his language, so he knows it. Right? We still translating. And then he goes on in the second ayah, and what were we supposed to say? La a'budu ma ta'budun. I do not worship that which you worship. Right? So that all that makes sense. Except because of the fact that he was not sober, he did this. And he left out the la. If he left out la, what we have in black there is missing. What he's saying is, I worship that which you worship. And he's telling the disbelievers that he, as a Muslim, is worshiping the same thing that they are worshiping. Now, for us, that is a major mistake in Quran, leaving out la, because it completely changes the meaning, one. But two, we still don't know, lots of us don't know the translation, exactly what it means. But he's speaking his language. This is his language. And for him to leave that out, so you know it was some big chaos, something happened there after that, right? So it had two issues. One, when Umar ibn al-Khattab came and asked the Prophet, and then Allah replied with the first one, and then he still said, I need more clarification. And at the same time, now this happened, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala went and he replied, right, through the Quran in Surah An-Nisa, right? So this was now revealed. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. Ya means O. Ayyuhalladhina, the people who amanu, who believe. So Allah is now he is specifically directed to the Muslims, to the believers. And so he's now showing them the second stage, what we should be doing. Right? And it goes on, La taqrabus salata wa antum sukaraha. La, do not approach salah or pray when you are in a drunken state. So you see, Allah is directly correcting the errors here. He looked at the situation and he's revealing Quran to deal with that. And he goes on, until lamu ma takulun, right? Until you know what you are saying. So let's look at the big picture. Do not approach prayer until when you are in a drunken state, until you know what you are saying. Right? So that's telling you something about what happened to intoxicants and what you end up doing with your mind. Or intoxicants, whatever the intoxicant is, right? How that affects you, and look what could be going on with your salah. So don't even come to salah here. Right? And Allah continues the ayah where he says, Wala junuba, and do not, unless you're in a state of junuba, right? So when you are not impure, only then come to salah. So don't just be clean, but also be sober. You must have both before you could come to pray. Right? So let me repeat. Do not approach prayer when you're in a drunken state until you know what you are saying and you are not impure. Right? So you must be in both of those things before you come and deal with it. So what do you think Umar, when this was revealed, right? The Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam called him and said, well, look, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has replied to you, to your question. What do you think Umar said? Think Umar was satisfied with this? Right? Look what Umar said. Can you make it clearer? It still wasn't clear enough for him. But maybe it wasn't just Umar alone, but it's who else, the other Sahabas who had questions, and he was the mouthpiece who was speaking, right, on behalf of them. So you got a first ruling talking about benefits and not, right? Then you get a second ruling, right? And it talks about this case here, right? And he still had problems. So therefore, we are now at this point here, we're in the second stage, right? And gradually it moved from the first stage, right, where they were drinking a lot, and then they got that revelation, and then we got a second revelation, and it's still not clear. So we now go on to the final stage, the third stage, dealing with Khamr. Right? So Allah says in Surah Ma'idah, chapter 5, verse 90 and 91, He says, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu innamal khamr wal maisiru wal ansabu wal azlamu rijsum min amali shaitani fajtanibu la'allakum tuflihun. And the first piece there, and he's speaking specifically, we just want to pull out the part about Khamr, right? Well, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, certainly Khamr, or intoxicants, are an outrage, an abomination from Satan's handiwork. So avoid all that in order that you may be successful. Now it goes on here, Allah doesn't just address intoxicants, He addresses gambling, He addresses altars that people use to sacrifice animals from apart from Allah, right? And arrows for deviation, or what we call, Trinidadians, we call it obia, right? And those sorts of things. He addressed all that, but we pulling out what we specifically, our topic is, right? So all you who believe, intoxicants are an outrage, an abomination from the shaitan, right? So strictly avoid all that in order that you may be successful. Now the problem with it is, some people read it and say wine. So they feel only wine is the intoxicant, right? But Khamr doesn't cover wine alone. It's whatever that befuddles you or confuses you or gives you a difference in choice, right? So it goes on now. Allah gave the second ayah that connects with it, right? And the ayah basically says, Shaitan wants only to excite enmity and hatred between you. That is Shaitan's goal with intoxicants. Right? So Allah is showing you what the point is, why He bringing intoxicants, so that it will bring about enmity and hatred between brothers. Right? So at the end of the ayah says, so will you not then abstain? So Allah is asking, so Allah give you all this. Will you not abstain then? Right? So what do you think happened then? What do you think the Muslims did at that point in time? And Umar, they accept. At that point now, by the time, third time, and Allah is super clear about it here, right? They accepted. And they said, there are reports talking about how the streets became wet because the intoxicants they had in their houses were liquid. So they kept it in jugs and they broke the jugs and the jugs flew out. The amount of intoxicants threw out there, right? And they got rid of it. And it's reported in Imam Ahmad, where he reports a hadith where Umar said, we did abstain. So we understood and we're no longer dealing with any of those intoxicants. So that shows, inshallah, the graduation from one end to the other end in terms of that, right? So let's go a little bit here. Now let's look at what the Nabi says about intoxicants. Every intoxicant is Khamr. Every intoxicant is that. And every intoxicant is forbidden. Right? So if anyone drinks intoxicant, right, Allah will not accept prayer from him for 40 days. But if he repents, Allah will accept his repentance. Now there's a long lecture Mufti Meng gave about this, right? Stating that even though your prayer is not accepted for 40 days because you're drunk, right? Because you consumed an intoxicant, right? One, you still owe Allah the right to pray. It is still due on you, even though I'm giving you his version of it there, right? Where he says that for these 40 days, you make ghusl and wudu, and you come and pray, and that is incumbent. You owe Allah that still. Because he's still giving you air, and he's still giving you oxygen, and he's still giving you that. And you know what? You get no rewards for it. Because what you did. Right? So this here can be done, and Allah is Ar-Rahman, right? The most merciful. So you could do this, and you could do it a second time. And you could do it a third time, and as long as you ask for forgiveness, right? Allah will accept. But if you do it by a fourth time, right? In this hadith, it says, if he repeats it for a fourth time, it is binding on Allah that he will give him Tinat al-Kabal to drink. Right? So you know, like when we're talking about making dua and you're talking about on the day of Qiyamah, that you will drink from Al-Kawthar, and the Nabi will give you that. Right? Because that is a river from Jannah. Right? This here, Tinat al-Kabal, is a river from inside the hell. Right? And so if Allah is telling you that this is where you're going to get something to drink from, where you have to be. Right. And it talks about that river. The people of the hellfire complain about the smell of that river. Right? And different scholars have different versions of what they think. I'll give you one version, in which you talk about like whatever wounds and thing you have, and whatever is coming out of that, that is what's filling that river. And that's what you're getting. So this is the point of what is happening and in terms of drinking or intoxicants. Yeah. So we go on. Now, Khamr can be subdivided, can be broken up into parts, right? So intoxicants is a big name, right? So Salama, right? She was called the hidden advisor, right? She's reporting this hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, where he says the Nabi prohibited substances that are muskir, right? Which are things like alcohol and stuff, right? And things which are muftir, things like marijuana. Now, what we learn in here, it have different states of intoxicants, right? Yes, solid, it have liquid, that kind of thing. Nowadays, now this was there, right? And then they didn't have the science and technology to break it down. Now it's broken down even more. It have things like stimulants, methamphetamines, like speed, ice, base, cocaine, right? Caffeine, right? Well, caffeine not so much. And what they do, they get on a high. So, and the big point to that is that you are no longer able to think on a stable way that you're supposed to be. That's one type, right? It have hallucinogens, which make you imagine things, right? You seeing things that are not there, right? Things like ketamine, LSD, all them things are wrong, you know, right? Right. So all them things we're talking about here, right? It have even what we call depressants, right? Now a depressant is something which is kind of slow down your central nervous system. It don't mean it will make you depressed, right? Some depressants don't do that. But some depressants include alcohol,